Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for our annual Military at SOM event. I'm pleased to host you all, and we have a great lineup of speakers and students to engage with you all today. My name is Jordan Brooks. I am the Assistant Director for Community Inclusion here at Yale SOM. So in our department, we have a relatively unique position within the space. We have our hand in recruiting and admissions, as well as the student experience where we're able to really build community and support our students throughout their MBA journey. So I hope you find value in today's session and continue to stay engaged with us afterwards. We'll be sharing the contact information of ourselves and also the panelists at the end of the event. So thank you for joining us today for that. So it's my pleasure to introduce our first speaker today, Rebecca Melville. Rebecca serves as a Managing Director of Financial Aid and also sits on our MBA Admissions Committee. Rebecca knows all things financial aid and is really our guru when it comes to all things money. So I encourage you to take some notes and learn as much as you can as far as how to finance your MBA journey, MBA here at Yale. So Rebecca, I'll pass it over to you now.
Thanks, Jordan. And I think from now on, you can either refer to me as Guru or Money Honey. Those are your two choices.
Exactly.
So thank you, everybody, for joining me today. And I kind of feel like you have to sit through my presentation until you get to chat with our wonderful alum and our current students who are veterans, I think mostly, maybe some active duty as well. So thank you for putting up with this. It is important. It is around how to use your benefits or how we can help you finance your MBA. We're really proud of the fact that we can make it a very reasonable financial proposition for many of our veterans in particular. Next slide, Rachel, please. Great. So I will also tell you that I have 4 screens. So my camera's on the most awkward one. So I apologize. I actually am looking at the Zoom, but it doesn't look like I'm looking at all of you. But our office is here to tell you from the time of admission, sometimes even before admission, how your benefits pieces will all fit together for you. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that when we talk about sort of the chronology of how all this works. And we can tell you a little bit about how that is working this year. We can't tell you, we don't have a crystal ball, so we can't really what next year's rates are likely to be. Although I'm sure you can go on any website and figure out what the VAH movement has historically been. I wish I could promise you when your checks will start arriving, but unfortunately I can't do that either. Most of you have a lot of experience working with the military, and sometimes sometimes they take their own time for things to start arriving. So next slide, Rachel, please. We are really proud of the fact that we are a military-friendly school, and that if you are an active duty service person or a veteran, please indicate that on the website as you apply. There should be some sort of automatic system that kicks in and waives your application fee. If not, please email our office and we will make sure that that is waived for you, so there's no cost to apply. We also have a handful of students every year attending as part of our memorandum of understanding with West Point. So that's for people who are going to go back and be faculty members at West Point, and active duty, different service branches will sponsor some students every year as well. But today, next slide, please, Rachel. I really wanted to focus on some of the specific benefits programs that our students are using. So currently our students are using all of these different benefits. With the biggest one, we do have branch specific active duty, but our active duty folks are probably the most knowledgeable on those pieces of information. But definitely the financial vehicle that's being used the most by our students currently is the post 9/11 GI Bill. So I wanted to spend a few minutes really digging down a little bit deeper into that. So next slide, please, Rachel. So this may be new information for some of you, but this is public information and on how you qualify for eligibility and percentage of eligibility in terms of your active duty service. So these are all the marks here. But essentially, once you hit 36 months of active duty service, then you are 100% eligible. At the 100% eligible level, that's when the yellow ribbon benefits kick in as well. So you do have to be 100% eligible to receive yellow ribbon. But I think it is important to say that you don't have to use your benefits. We do have students attending who are going to save their benefits and transfer them to their dependents or perhaps education at some other point. You do currently have to be, honorably discharged in order to receive your post 9/11 benefits. That will change in mid-cycle for most of you. I'm assuming that many of you are thinking about starting in fall 2021. Well, so the Congress passed a couple of years ago a law that will extend yellow ribbon benefits to active duty. So you wouldn't get that for 1 year, but you would certainly get that for your second year. Of course, we haven't lived through that yet. But that is a change that would affect all of you, if not most of you. Everything else is sort of dependent on what that percentage of eligibility is. Only about 50% of the people attending our programs, whether that be, actually it's a little bit less for executive MBA. I want to say a big hello to our executive MBA candidates as well who are joining us today, but only about 50% are 100% eligible. And that's for a variety of reasons. A lot of the folks you'll hear from them today went to service academies, and so that clock starts ticking at a different time for people who went to service academies, or they just didn't have enough months of active duty. And so we do try to have those conversations with folks who are applying when they're applying, and and make it a more reasonable option for our candidates. Next slide, please, Rachel. So I kind of mentioned a little bit of this yellow ribbon piece here, but you do, and I'm sort of a public service announcement for all of you. You should look into which schools do a yellow ribbon match and which ones do not. Most of the elite MBA programs will do some sort of yellow ribbon contribution, but we are very pleased. And I'm going to give huge props to John Perez here, who you'll meet momentarily, for really pushing this for many years, that we are one of, I think, the first elite private school to do a full yellow ribbon match. So what does that mean? I will put that into dollar figures in 2 slides from now. But basically, if you are 100% eligible, it is the equivalent of a free MBA. So next slide is basically what I just said. I do want to highlight again that effective August the 1st, 2022, active duty military will be eligible for a yellow ribbon. Here's what I don't know, because again, we haven't lived this experience, how that will affect service branches who are sponsoring candidates, to be continued, to be determined. As soon as I know more, I will let you know. The military doesn't usually talk to me directly, so I usually find out from the people you'll hear from later, who move back to me and tell me how it's all going to work. So next slide, please, Rachel. So this is how it essentially will all work. I want to make sure that, there we go. We'll bring up some of these pieces here. So this assumes that you are 100% eligible, and let's walk you through this. So every year, the VA sets tuition rates, and it's actually the same tuition rate for, I think, like 80% of colleges and universities. And this is the amount that they are willing to pay for tuition. It's obviously not the tuition cost for a Yale MBA. And you can get one of those each military fiscal year. So we ask the VA for that money, and they give you $25,000 towards your tuition, right? Non-taxable, that's great. They will send you a check for $1,000, which is almost exactly what you should spend on course materials and supplies. So that goes to you directly. Now, again, right now, active duty are not do not receive those funds. And then you get your board and housing allowance. That changes a little bit every year. This is the first year that I've seen since 2012 where that decreased. And it's determined by, and now I will try and speak military, which doesn't go well, based on your E5 with dependents and based on the school zip code. So my understanding, and maybe the students can correct me if I'm wrong a little bit, but should be based on where the zip code where 165 Whitney Avenue, which is the address of the School of Management, is based. That's what it is this year. It is based on your enrollment and your rate of pursuit. And I say rate of pursuit because that will become more important when we talk about the executive MBA benefits. Then what we want to do is try and fill that gap of tuition, mandatory tuition and fees with yellow ribbon. So we take 50% of whatever that tuition and fees is outstanding after the $25,000 comes in, and Yale will give you a scholarship, a yellow ribbon scholarship to cover half of that, and the VA will match those funds. And those come in directly to the university as well, obviously again as non-taxable income. And that's how you essentially get to a free MBA. Rachel, next slide, please. I also want to highlight that at the VA.gov, the G comparison tool, I would definitely urge all of you to use the tool, but you will have to highly customize it for each of the schools. And the reason is because the default information that is in there is for the undergraduate programs. So it's not that the information isn't perfect, but once you can put in the information, you'll get to the right information. That didn't make any sense. But, so the GI Bill, what you want to do is make sure you plug in these numbers. Again, this recording will be made available to you, but these are the numbers you want to put in. Tuition fees are actually $74,560 this year. And the other pieces will sort of self-populate for you, and you can see how all of those benefits there will start flowing in. It is an incredibly helpful tool if you have the right dollar figures that are probably not going to default incorrectly, even if you choose the School of Management at Yale. All right, next slide, Rachel, please. I want to talk, or I want to show you a little bit of a calculator that we put together. Our office will email that to you actually as you're admitted. So about a week after you are admitted to our program, whatever time of year that is, we'll send you this calculator and we'll tell you the 4 places you have to put in information. You need to put in what you think your eligibility will be, whether or not you got any sort of additional scholarships from people, and whether or not you're yellow ribbon eligible. And then all of these numbers should populate based on what we know of this year's VA rates. So again, those are readjusted every year. As soon as they're readjusted, we try to let you know. But then this calculator will show semester by semester what you should expect to receive both directly to Yale or what we'll pay for, and then as well the living allowance and the book stipend under that total paid to you. Again, it's meant to be as helpful as possible. What the VA sendeth over is what the VA decided to sendeth over sometimes. So we do our best to make sure that they have the most current information and work with you. Please let us know if there is a glitch, because we do try and do our best to iron everything out. But sometimes it's not, it can have a couple of bumpy steps. We hear from a couple of students every year. So next slide, Rachel, I want to show you the same thing, but for executive students. So you can see that this is a little different. The big differences are, so I'm showing you exactly what I showed you in the last slide, but for the executive MBA program. The difference here being that phrase I use, the rate of pursuit. It's also different because our executive MBAs straddle 3 different military fiscal years and therefore get 3 MBA tuition payments. You can see that 25,162 in 3 different semester columns. Because our executive MBAs spend less time in New Haven and are still working full-time jobs, their rate of pursuit is calculated differently as well. And so that is under the total paid to you from the VA. you can see that number. It varies pretty significantly from semester to semester. So we ask you all to plan accordingly. This should also be sent to you directly from the admissions office post-admission to, again, give you a tool to be as helpful as possible as you make your decision and compare your offers. Next slide, please, Rachel. All right, so what all of you should be thinking about doing, because my understanding is that it's not always clear how the VA will calculate your eligibility. And some of you are still active duty and don't plan on separating until, we have a couple of folks every year who separate at the end of August. And so those are the folks who typically we have to make sure that we certify them at a certain date, etc. There is in any school one certifying official. That is not me. That is our registrar. So, but we do want you to make sure you've done your research. And then you want to make sure that you apply online. And I actually did not check, but it's still called VONAPP, but it used to be called VONAPP. And then the sorting through and the evaluation of your your eligibility is done in Buffalo, New York for everybody. And my understanding is that they've been pretty timely in the last year. And we will ask you to submit this to our office so that we can then have a sense of sort of when your benefits are going to start, what your eligibility is, and we'll put placeholders in that system for Yale University that bills you, so that we just going to subtract the amount that the VA is going to send in, so you don't have to cover it in any way, or hopefully not get any late fees. We back them out if we know about them. So that's the process. First, again, use that GI on VETS.gov, the comparison tool. Edit what you put in, but it's extremely helpful, and do it for all of the schools that you're looking to apply to. I think it's very helpful. Then make sure you get your benefits determined by applying online. And then once you're admitted, you're going to submit that to our office. So we'll make sure that the certifying official, next slide, please, Rachel, will go in and certify your enrollment each semester. This is what that little tool that I showed you, the estimated benefits per semester, actually looks like. The full thing, the red highlights being the pieces of information that you will submit, and we'll then populate the rest of the fields in the Excel calculator. Any changes, anything bad happens, and I hope the students online listening know this, our certifying official, our registrar, can reach out to the VA. And we try, so oftentimes it's around the dates of certification or changes in status, or and so, a little patience goes a long way. We're very proud. This year, I believe we have 48 military folks in at the school. Last year, it was a little bit higher. I want to say 50 or 51. So we're very pleased to work a lot with you all. And obviously, thank you for your service and your great work. I probably close to the end, maybe even overstaying my welcome. So Jordan, Rachel, I want to make sure we answer any questions.
Yeah, we do have a couple of questions that I'm hoping that you can answer live, actually. One relating to non-US Army veterans. How does financial aid also translate over to non-US veterans as well?
That's a great question. So all of this that I was talking about is obviously for US servicemen and women. For folks who are in military elsewhere, I mean, I think as a member of the admissions committee, any military experience is really very relevant for an MBA program, because we're looking for leaders across every segment of society. And, the military leadership, frankly, is pretty easy to prove, because you're often given huge responsibility at a very early stage in your career, big budgets, and lots of people. But that being said, you're not eligible for these benefits that we were discussing. You are, however, eligible for merit aid, just like anybody else in the application pool. Roughly this year was about 50%. And in the last few years, it's been 45% of the students who start in the MBA program. I wouldn't want to speak for that executive MBA program, receive some sort of merit-based aid. And that can vary anywhere between, $10,000 a year discount, $20,000 total to up to full tuition increase.
Thank you, Rebecca. And we'll just take this last question. How long does the eligibility process take? When should admitted students start reaching out to Yale Financial Aid Office to start the process?
That's a great question. So you're not actually going to reach out to our office to determine your eligibility. You're going to reach out to that. You're going to go to that VONAPP site and apply for them to determine your eligibility. So I know some of the students, maybe here, it was, I think 2 years ago, there was a huge slowdown in Buffalo and it was a bit of a concern. But I think that might be, it kind of depends on the cycle, to be honest. My understanding is that they're being right now. So I would give it a couple of months, I would think. It really behooves you to do it as soon as you think you can do it, given your career in the military. Just because then and you're walking into this sort of decision and deciding between schools or figuring out your finances early enough based on your eligibility. As you can see, there's a pretty significant difference between 100% eligible and not. And most of the schools will want you to tell them. Certainly at Yale SOM, we ask everybody, how do you think you're now going to finance this MBA? And if we see somebody, if we have merit aid that we can then supplement, then we'll try and do that. But we can't do that for everybody, so I don't want to set that expectation either. But it's helpful for you to know, and it's helpful for us to know what you're going to use so that we can make as an attractive a financial aid package as possible.
Perfect. Thank you, Rebecca. It's always good to hear from you. I feel like I learn something new every time you do a presentation. So thank you for joining us and providing the participants with this information that does be useful as far as financing their MBA. So thank you for that.
No problem. Jordan, can I just make one more plug? As you can see, the email address is on the screen, so please feel free to email us. We do prioritize our current students, so it takes us a couple of days to get back to you. And the second thing is I did see a question come through on vocational rehabilitation. We are seeing many more students using voc rehab. In many cases, voc rehab can even be more generous than the post 9/11 bill, but you'll have to meet with your counselor, and that counselor sort of your caseworker determines that. That actually doesn't really have a ton to do with my office because it typically covers full tuition fees and even living, and it's billed out of the Central University. So if that's you, please do let us know, but it'll work a little bit differently. That's all. So thanks again. Thanks, Rachel, for your help with the slides, and enjoy the rest of the day.
Perfect, thank you. So next up, we have our student panel which will be moderated by John Perez. John Perez is a Yale School of Management 2012 alumnus and is currently serving as the head of military and veteran affairs at Johnson & Johnson. John is a graduate of Johnson & Johnson's Procurement Leadership Development Program, an MBA level hiring and accelerated development program, and he's held previous procurement, supply chain and acquisition and divestiture roles across Johnson & Johnson. Prior to joining Johnson & Johnson, John served as a U.S. Army and then U.S. Army Reserve officer in various cross-functional roles, twice deploying to Iraq. So thank you, John, for agreeing to join us today and moderating this panel, and I will pass it over to you.
Great, thanks, Jordan. Thanks, great presentation, Rebecca. Rebecca truly is a guru. I love that title. I will only refer to Rebecca, and I've known her since I was a student a decade ago. Truly a guru, and I see there's a lot of questions popping up for the panelists, and I know Rebecca is the right person to do it. So thanks, Rebecca, and thanks for the shout out on the advocacy as well.
Yeah, that was a big, you had a heavy hand in that, so thanks, John.
That's great. So just a quick introductory comment. So for me, I'm 8 years removed from SOM. It's hard to believe it's been a decade since I started there. An absolutely incredible experience. I'm excited that everybody is able to join today. I'm honored to be able to host this great and moderate this great panel. For me, professionally transformative experience. When I looked at lots of great programs out there, the thing that stood apart and the reason I made the decision to join SOM was twofold. One was the mission. of the school, developing leaders for business and society. And then the second was, frankly, the culture and the community and being part of that. And I do think that's a differentiator for the school. And I've been really pleased that over now 8 years at Johnson & Johnson and in civilian employment, I've been able to take the lessons that I've learned from SOM and probably even most importantly, the network that I've developed as a result of my time there and been able to be professionally successful. So with that as background, let me turn to our panelists. So we've got 6 great panelists today. We've got a mixture of first year and second year students. I think they'll be able to answer all your questions. Please put them in the chat and then we'll go through. But let me kick off with an introductory one that I'll go to all panelists. Could you please introduce yourself, share a little bit about your journey to SOM, a little bit of your aspirations for your future professional journey post SOM, and in particular, why SOM of all the other potential schools that you could have gone to. I'll call folks. Grant, can we start with you?
Sure, thanks, John. Yeah, so I'm Grant Peterson. I'm a second year at SOM, Green Cohort. I was previously a USMA student, class of 2014, Go Apaches. I see a fellow Apache in the audience, and also me and Calvin went to school together, so very small army there. When I graduated USMA, I was the logistics officer, served for my obligatory 5, plus a little extra for the GI Bill, transitioned right into Yale SOM. Everything that Rebecca said is very serious and very fantastic, benefited from a lot of that. And at SOM, I recruited basically for everything. You'll get a mixture of advice on that topic, but I just really kept my options open and just pruned the tree of opportunity as I lost interest. Got down to consulting and tech, and I'm likely going to go the tech direction as I'm sitting on an offer from Google that I'm very excited about.
That's great. Congratulations. Calvin.
Hi, everybody. My name is Calvin Santos. I grew up in California and went off to West Point. I was class of 2012. I commissioned into the Armor Branch, spent 5 years in, got out, got a master's in industrial engineering, and then I worked for a year and a half at Accenture as a technology consultant. After that, I started looking around to do a pivot and eventually settled on SOM because it was just such a good cultural fit for me. Now I'm currently recruiting for investment banking.
That's great. Harrison.
Hi, I'm Harrison. I'm coming to SOM from the Navy, where I was a surface warfare officer for 4 years down in Mayport, Florida. I came to SOM because it was the perfect combination of a family life. I have a wife and son at home, so if anyone has family questions, I'd be happy to answer those, paired with a strong academic curriculum. From here, I'm looking to pivot into general management or consulting, still working through my options and still affiliated with the reserves as well. So happy to answer any questions about that.
Great. Elena.
Hi, everyone. I'm Elena, and I'm active duty Coast Guard. I graduated from the Coast Guard Academy here in lovely Connecticut in 2011. And I did my first tour 2 years as a deck watch officer on a ship. And then I went to Alaska for 3 years, working Coast Guard operations in a command center, coordinating search and rescue. Then I came to New Haven, Connecticut in 2016. There's a Coast Guard base there, and I was working in marine environmental protection and pollution response. I got picked up for a grad school program for financial management. And so it worked out. I'm married member to member, and my spouse is stationed in New London at the Coast Guard Academy, and Yale was right here. But I also, regardless of it working out for my personal life, I just fell in love with the community here. I attended a welcome weekend event, and I was kind of taken aback at the culture of inclusion here. I kind of was worried that I was going to come into a pretentious Ivy League place, and I did not get that sense at all when I visited SOM. So that was a big reason I came here. And then just also the opportunity to take electives at any of the other grad schools at Yale was very tempting to me. I'm taking a couple classes at other schools this year in my second year. And after grad school, I'll be doing a payback tour as a finance officer, probably at Coast Guard headquarters. And I intend to stay in the Coast Guard for a full career.
Great. John.
Thanks, John. I'm John O'Shea. I'm a former Army finance officer. Originally started out as a field artillery officer and then V-tipped over after 2 years. Served 7 years total, lastly in Afghanistan with the NATO headquarters. One thing I really like about SOM that some of my classmates have already kind of hit on is the culture here. I had the chance to go to a veterans visit weekend about a year before applying, and the vibe I got was this is a totally like chill, collaborative place where your classmates are gonna like push you to be the best you can be, but everyone's trying to build each other up and help each other succeed. So I found that mirrored my experience in the military, and that really resonated with me. I'm currently recruiting for corporate finance, and I'm a first-year student, so just still seeing what's out there and just casting a wide net.
Great. And then Locke, please.
Yeah, hi, Locke Bao, USMA 2010, and I served 8 years in the Army. I started as an infantry officer and I finished off as civil affairs officer and spent my last year in Iraq working at the U.S. Embassy talking about what's going to happen after ISIS. So that was a very unique experience for me, which led me to kind of a broader world, as much as you have realized that the world is broad in the military and there's lots of different ways to do impact. So I felt like MBA was kind of the route to go there. I had a little bit of a lag between the time I got out of the military and when I could start school. So I worked nonprofit for a year, which again, just broadens your aperture. Last summer, I spent my internship at GE Renewable Energy working on sustainability and building wind projects. After SOM, I am going to going to IBM in the corporate strategy consulting, so I can definitely touch on any of those roles if anybody's curious. And for me, SOM, as I was second what John said about it being business and society, and I would say that and society part is not just something we add on there. I think it's a co-equal part of what we do. And you're going to see that in everything that you do here, from your classes talking about sustainability, diversity, and inclusion, all those issues, to the many passionate projects that your classmates would go through. It really inspires you to do more and to think a little bit more about just profit and loss, which is the main driver of business. But there's more to it. And I think as veterans, that's something that resonates with all of us.
No, that's great. Thanks everybody for the introductions, and great to hear a little bit about Locke and Grant's summer internship experience. Before I jump into some other questions, maybe Elena, you have a unique background in that you're still active duty. You're going to return to active duty afterwards. What was your summer? You're also a second-year student. What was your summer like?
For the Coast Guard, it was compulsory that we did something Coast Guard related, and I actually worked at the Coast Guard Academy in the comptroller's office, and I spent a lot of time taking and studying for these government financial management certifications. Okay,
sounds pretty. It could be interesting. I'm not entirely sure. Was that a good, enjoyable summer? I guess we're recording, so maybe.
It's a good learning experience.
Good learning experience. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. So let's spend a little bit of time talking about the admissions process and the search process. Right, we're in between. First round of applications already passed. Second round due, I believe, in the beginning of January. So let's dive into a question specific to that. I'll do this first question for everybody. What advice would you give a prospective student searching for an MBA program? What were the things that you looked for? What were the things that you wish you knew going into the application season? Let's start. We'll go through the same order we did before. So Grant, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. Well, there's 5 components of the application. 2 of them are already pretty much locked in if you're thinking about GPA and GMAT, but the other 3 you can have a substantial effect on. So I just say, think about it as a profile and make sure you're expressing all the things you want to express. I'd also say on more macro level, on the application process at large, you really only have to hit once. So make sure you're reaching out to folks. And also, final piece of advice is, it's really not a solo project at all. You really need to have kind of a council behind you. So if you're not signed up for programs like Service to Schools, it's a nonprofit that helps veterans just kind of polish their applications. definitely sign up for those sorts of programs and reach out to mentors to help you along the way.
That's great. And were there any that of the different resources, Grant, were any others that stood out to you? I think you gave a great one of service to school. Certainly reaching out to current students was another one. Were there any other specific tools or programs that you used?
I think those are really the two big ones, but I just put a point of emphasis on not being afraid to reach out to folks over LinkedIn. I think it's not something that veterans are used to doing, but you will be surprised by how ready and accessible folks are to help you along the journey. So definitely do that.
Great insight. Calvin, how about yourself?
Before I jump into it, I just want to reiterate, Grant is absolutely right. If you ever want to talk to anyone on LinkedIn who's currently at SOM, I think we're some of the most accepting and welcoming people you're going to find. My own experience has been, was pretty much centered around, I had already been to grad school, so I understood a little bit of the process, but because business school is its own kind of beast, I did actually use an admissions consultant. I early on didn't think I was going to be able to reach to the elite levels, but after doing a little more prep work, I found that it was perfectly attainable. And if I had good scores on my GREs, at that point they were already 3 years old, so I was able to recycle my scores. But you are more than just a set of standardized tests. The individual interviews was definitely where I made my money. So I would absolutely encourage all of you, if you think that you might not be able to attain an Ivy League, specifically Yale, I would definitely say just try it anyway. You'd be surprised how far you can reach.
Harrison, similar story for you?
Yeah, and I think one thing, especially if you're currently active duty, is to know your deadlines and work back from those. The last thing you want is to put so much time and preparation into testing and interviewing and networking, only to have an emergent operation cause you to miss the deadline. So just make sure you're submitted well before the deadlines. You don't want those to sneak up on you. The other thing too is managing your efforts. So definitely cast a wide net, but don't cast one too wide. You've put in so much time into test preparation, your career. Don't shortchange the applications, because there's still a lot of money that could be made on those as well.
Elena, we have some great answers. I'm wondering, maybe could you also give some thought on maybe the GMAT or GRE prep? Were there any resources you used in preparation for that?
That's to me.
Yeah, and you could please answer the other part of the question, but I'll just expand on it. Maybe we could talk a little bit more on the GMAT and GRE prep for some folks as well.
I took the GMAT 3 times, you guys. Erased it 100 points, thankfully. I used, so the first time I took it, I didn't study at all because I was pressed for time because I was applying for the Coast Guard program. And then after I got in, then I started applying to schools, and then I was like, all right, I'm not going to apply to schools with this low of a GMAT. I need to like retake it. And I used a software program called Magoosh. I don't know if you guys are familiar. I'm going to type it into the chat, but it worked great for me. It fit my learning style. You can like choose your pace, choose what to focus on, and you can use it for the GRE or the GMAT. So I recommend that for studying. And to answer the question for people applying to different programs, I agree with everything that's been said. I also recommend that you think about your interests, what club activities you would want to be involved in. Look up those club websites on each school and reach out to those clubs and talk to current students. You guys are here at this admissions panel. Definitely like reach out to our Vets Club, and I thought it was helpful. I reached out to current students at different schools just to get a vibe of what the culture was like. I thought it was important. It's hard now with COVID to do a actual visit to the school. And then I just wanted to address another question. Someone was asking about my active duty experience and being plugged in while at school, while planning follow-on tours, and also just for everyone, like shifting from being in the military to student civilian life. I do recommend you take some time off if it's possible. I know it's not always possible for everyone, but it was a shift in mindset for me, and I thought it was important to take some leave and just to have that opportunity to reset and think about your intentions going into school, because not to sound corny, it it really is a gift to have 2 years to like devote yourself to learning, and then also all the opportunities available for recruitment. So I recommend taking time off. And then like for those who are staying active duty and going back in, I definitely research the classes, look at the reviews from other students. And I look at it from the frame of like, how can I use this in the service, or just on a personal level. And maybe we'll talk later about some of our favorite classes and stuff, but I just look at it through that lens.
Yep. Let's stay, Locke, I've seen a couple questions related to the specific application and the personal statement. So I'd love to hear, what did you do in your preparation for the application? How did you approach the personal statement?
Yeah, so I think there's two things that business schools really look for, and that's just kind of very general advice, right? Number one, is the school going to get you to where you want to go career professionally? And number two, are you a cultural fit for the community of the school, right? So you definitely have to do that research on that subject. And just really, on that first point, it's super important to think about, is the school going to get me to where I want to go? So you need to be able to think about, what does the school specialize in? Right? And each of the top MBA programs kind of has a little bit of different focus, where you're looking at schools that specialize in finance and general management. SOM checks all those blocks, right? You can pretty much go from any industry you want to go at SOM, and especially in the practical world. Some of the MBA programs are only as good as the schools that recruit from the program. Honestly, like if McKinsey recruits from your school, you have an equal shot of going to McKinsey as anybody else in the program. If they don't, then you're gonna have a tough time, right? And that's just how it is. And luckily, SOM checks all those blocks. So do that research first and be able to draw that map of, I want to go into this industry, so I can go to this school, and I want to go to these companies, and this school is going to give me those lessons, right? And that definitely needs to be reflected in your essay. Number two is they're going to look for cultural fit, and that has a lot to do with the mission of the school and what they want to do. And that's going to have to be your reflection on what your personal goals are and what you want to be able to show the school. And that's a lot of for SOM, understanding business and society, and how have you reflected that to society. We all have that as veterans, because we all have this greater calling. We have all values that a lot of us is more important in our life, and you really need to be able to reflect that. But I will also give the advice that it's okay to be vulnerable in your application process. We want to see the three-dimensional human being, and a lot of us don't like to say like we've had a failure, we've had something that went wrong. You can definitely say that, but you definitely want to show what you learned from it. So really be able to reflect that you're a three-dimensional human, you face challenges and you've overcome them, because the question that we'll always ask you is what is your biggest commitment, and be able to say like, I made this commitment and it was challenging and I overcame it, and I'm going to continue to do that going forward. And I think that makes for a very strong essay and application.
John, what are your thoughts on the application process? What advice would you give?
I would definitely say it's all about telling a good story, right? I remember mine was all centered around a theme, and my theme was about tying in why I went to West Point, why I got the major that I went, why I commissioned into the armor branch, and why I was looking to go to business school. And it was all about efficiencies and helping people realize their dreams. And so being able to say that in an eloquent and coherent way was definitely the best thing that I was able to figure out. And I think that applies for everyone. Find your theme and something that you can speak to. And it's not just you're trying to sell some random product, you're trying to sell you. So it needs to be sincere and something that you're passionate about, for sure.
Good. Any other last, John, do you have any thoughts on the admissions process?
Sure. The only things I would add to what Locke and Calvin said is just make sure both your essays and your interview, if you make it to that stage, just make sure you're able to articulate through your story, why do I want an MBA? Why do I want one now? And why do I want one from SOM? So make sure you answer the prompt or answer the question being asked, but the subtext is that's what the admission staff is going to want to know.
No, that's great. And I think some great discussion on the admissions process. I mean, some of the things that I heard from that was you almost have to approach it like it is a job, right? Being systematic in your understanding of yourself and your goals, understanding of what the pool of potential programs that are a fit for you, and then do the due diligence, whether it's using the resources like Service to School that Grant brought up at the beginning, or the resources of folks like this, the SOM Veterans Club and all the other clubs at the different ones, and then tell your story of where you're coming from, where you want to go, and how that school is uniquely going to get you there. So it's a great discussion on that. So we've got a little less than half an hour left. So let's pivot and talk now on some of the academics. And then we'll talk a little bit about culture and the social scene, let's say at SOM and in New Haven, and then a little bit on the professional side. So I'll ask one more question to everybody, and then maybe we'll go in sort of by exception as people have thoughts on it. So this is an academics question open for everybody, or we'll go through everybody. What's the coursework and classroom experience like? Maybe describe your experience in the core, and then in particular, if you're a second year, go into a little bit more on that electives, the electives that you've been able to take so far. Grant, you want to start?
Sure, and I'll be quick. For the core, they totally acknowledge that you have a lot of coals in the fire and you're juggling a bunch of different priorities. So to be totally forthright, I think academics was kind of a tertiary priority to me. That being said, I thought all the classes were useful. And then for second year, I will say that there's a significant added value. I think another panelist already mentioned this, but significant added value of being able to take courses across Yale University, because at the end of the day, it's Yale University, and you really get to take some time to explore things you're interested in. So I think that's a great feature of the program.
Great. Calvin, what was your experience like?
So being right in the middle of core classes right now, I can tell you everything is perfectly doable. I would say most of them come at you pretty fast, especially accounting. And if you're getting into consulting, or especially IB this year, recruiting starts almost immediately. So you need to be able to juggle those. And at certain points, you're going to have to pick priorities. Luckily, though, and this kind of gets into the culture of it, you're going to have classmates who are absolute rock stars, who are going to be good at everything. So absolutely lean on your classmates, lean on your small group team members. And at the end of the day, the school doesn't want you to fail. They want you to succeed. So you want to be able to succeed. So you just have to put in the work.
So how have the classes been for you? What's been your most enjoyable one thus far in the core?
I mean, we're right in the middle of Investor right now. State and Society is pretty interesting too, mostly because Gold Cohort is very passionate about a lot of topics. And so we tend to get sidetracked and talk about a lot of interesting things. But just because I'm also personally interested in finance, Investor, it's cool to get into the nuts and bolts of how the market works.
And for you, Harrison, what do you think?
I think that's a really individual-based question on what your individual goals are. I think there's an opportunity in each class to get exactly how much out of it you want. So for some people, if your priority is learning the material, you could get incredibly in-depth, and there's a ton of great resources, and you could go beyond just getting a passing grade or whatever it may be. That being said, as Grant touched on, there is a lot of prioritization that goes on between your recruiting and your clubs and your networking and your activities. So it seems like there's limitless potential if you want to continue to go deeper into your coursework, but it's really up to you on what you're trying to take away from the experience.
Fair. Elena, you brought up in some of your first comments around the courses outside of SOM. Maybe tell me a little bit about your electives outside of SOM and what are some of the ones you're taking right now?
I'm participating in one global network of advanced management. I don't know if this has been touched on. So Yale has a partnership with an international network of business schools, and I'm participating in one with the business school in Australia. I forget the exact name, but a project management one. So that has been interesting. It doesn't have set meeting times, and it's been cool to work on teams with students from around the world and just collaborate virtually. And then another class I'm taking is at the Jackson Institute of International Affairs. It's just down the street from SOM. The class is called Ethical Choices in Public Leadership, and it's it's been a really engaging class. It's just mainly participatory, putting students through different simulations. And then we're in groups where we come up with simulations that kind of test what your red lines are and how you approach ethical decisions. Like you might think it's black and white, but when there's no good choice, then you start developing a framework for how to approach these situations. And I've really enjoyed that class. And then also just on this topic of coursework, it's also worth noting the grading system at SOM is it's on a curve, but so like the bottom 10% of the class is a pass, and then the next 60 or so percent is proficient, and then there's honors and high honors. And I really like that grading system personally, because at least when we have the decision to choose electives, I feel like I don't need to shy away from the harder classes, because it's really just about the learning experience. And there's a lot of support here between your learning teams, which you're assigned to in your first year, doing homework together, and then also just the teachers, assistants, and the review sessions. There's a lot of support if you're worried about the academic struggle.
No, that's great. And so Locke, I'll turn to you. I think you've gone on your international experience. I think Elena just brought that up as well. Could you tell a little bit about your international experience or how that fits into the broader academic coursework that you do at the end of your first year?
Yeah, unfortunately that was canceled because of COVID, so I haven't gone on one.
Oh no! All right, so I'm a terrible moderator for it. So, but if you could share a little bit on what the international experience should be and how that fits in to your time at SOM, that would be great.
Yeah, so you have several options to do an international experience. One is required to graduate. For our year, because of COVID, that wasn't going to be the case. I was actually on my way to go to Indonesia to do a week exchange with the University of Indonesia, Jakarta, which would have been fantastic because some of that's offset by Yale tuition. So that's an easy one to get. If you don't know, it's a bidding system to get into classes. And then international, so you have a certain amount of points that you're allocated for the entire time at Yale to bid into some of the higher classes or the classes that have more demand. And the international experiences are extremely in high demand because they almost act as an in-depth class. So that's kind of the way a lot of students do it. So they'll bid on an international experience, which becomes almost a course. So you will do a project leading up to going overseas and going to that specific country, where you're going to do research on the country. You're going to research a specific problem. You can almost you're going to do a presentation guided by professors so you can actually implement that in countries. So a lot of students do that. It's very high in demand. Last year we had several key countries, Israel, China, South Africa. So a lot of really cool, Japan, a lot of cool places as well, really cool professors leading it. Fortunately, that didn't happen for this year. I'm hoping it'll come back for next year. That's the main way students do it. A lot of students would do what I did, which is do like a week exchange with a university, and that happens in various countries around the world too. So definitely was excited for that. Hopefully it's coming back.
I hope so. And John, I'll turn to you for a second. If you could share a little bit of your core experience and maybe a little bit on your experience with staying within your cohort, and then the learning teams that we have, and sort of how that works into the core would be great to share. I'll make one comment on the international experience. I do hope it comes back for everybody. I think that was frankly a highlight for me of my 2 years at SOM. I was able to go to China with Professor Jeffrey Garten, who you may know the last name. His wife is the Barefoot Contessa, which is a TV show, which came up in every one of the sessions. People were more interested to talk to the Barefoot Contessa's husband while we were there, but a great experience, Shanghai, Hong Kong, meeting with business leaders, government leaders, also time in Beijing, a lot of more senior government leaders. So great overview of financial markets in China at the time, business environment, and really, and then the social part of it also was just incredible. So really for me, the highlight of the 2 years were those couple weeks doing the international experience. So hopefully that will come back as we move beyond COVID. But John, maybe close us out on the academic side and tell us a little bit more about your experience, especially working with your cohort and your small group.
Sure. So I don't think anyone here has explicitly touched on this yet. So your class is going to be divided into groups of about 70-ish students, which is your cohort. You're going to take all of your core curriculum classes with them, which is going to be basically every class your first year, except for like 1 or 2 electives I think you can take in the spring. So you're going to get to know the other students in your cohort very well. Within your cohort, you're going to get divided into what's called a learning team. And that's who you're normally going to work with to do like your group assignments. So it was a great experience. It took me a little while to get used to doing a lot of group work, since at least in undergrad, I didn't really do much group work at all, except maybe studying with people before tests. So that took some getting used to, but it's a great experience because you'll find here that, you know, everybody wants to contribute and pull their weight, and you have classmates from all different kinds of backgrounds. So even if you have a classmate who may not be the strongest in like quant related classes, they're often you know, very good at writing, very good at public speaking, and vice versa. So your teams are going to be structured in such a way that you can balance each other out and really like help everybody learn and grow.
No, great. Okay, so we talked a little bit about academics the last 15 minutes or so. I won't go to everybody on the panel, so please jump in if you'd like to lead off on the question and then go from there. Let's pivot to sort of professional search. So the question is, what resources are there for the internship and then the subsequent full-time recruiting? And what was your experience like in that job search?
I guess I can jump in here. So the Career Development Office, CDO, is going to put on a whole bunch of events, typically called Hire SOM or Engage SOM. And at that point, you're going to have 20 to 30 different employers come in. And I've been told in real life, it's a much more exciting event. Virtually, it's much more, you have to get really good at Zoom, right? But nowadays, I'm leaning really hard on the Finance Club to be able to go through the recruiting process for internships. And there was definitely weeks where I was sitting down with a representative at a bank pretty much every day, if not twice a day. And there was probably 3 weeks there where recruiting was more onerous and more engaging than what I was doing in classes at that time. And so it pairs down really quickly, but it's definitely important, especially if you're doing the investment banking route.
I would add, since I would add, because I'm recruiting for corporate finance, if you're doing anything other than investment banking or consulting, your search is going to be a bit less formal and structured, and it's going to be a bit more on you to, you know, to plan to call into all the events the CDO puts on for the companies you're interested in, and even to like seek out alumni or like other folks you know via LinkedIn and reach out on your own. Another thing I'll add is that your network, it's not just limited to SOM alumni. You'll often find that Yale College, so undergrad alumni, even if they went to a different business school, are going to be like just as likely to want to help you out and point you in the right direction. And also other veterans, I mean, that's a very strong network as well. So if you know a veteran at a company that you're interested in, even if he went to a different business school, you know, reach out to them, and you know, they're very likely to want to help you and put you in the right direction.
Yeah, I think that's a great call out of, you know, there's both things that you can do through SOM, you know, the virtual on-campus recruiting search, and then things that are going to be self-directed and separate, whether it's, you know, you're individually reaching out to companies that have MBA programs, or you're going to a diversity conference, right? I know I and led a team virtually for Johnson & Johnson at MBA veterans just in the last couple weeks, where we're recruiting for many of our different MBA hiring programs. So there's that mix of on-campus, very CDA, the career office supportive and driven, and then the self-directed opportunities, which are also pretty substantial. Grant and Locke, you both have gone through the internship process and are now making decisions on the full-time. What were your experiences?
Yeah, I'd start by saying that for any actual perceived deficit you have in kind of the process, there's a resource at Yale to help you out. The two most helpful resources that I've used is just going in with a career counselor that has seen cohorts and cohorts of MBAs go through, just sitting down with them at the very beginning and just kind of game planning, macro time management, what my recruiting strategy was going to be. And then also, I was in person last year, and there's an event where basically all the second years, or a substantial amount of second years rather, have like a little booth, and they just tell you about what they did for the summer. And for me, I was military family, military college, overseas a bunch. I really had a very small aperture of what was out there vocationally. So I'd say the biggest resources, I probably said this before, but the biggest resources is just the second years that are going to kind of reach down and help you out. And then also leveraging your network on LinkedIn or at networking events, and veterans are always going to help you out.
Yeah, I would just add, if we're saying terms in terms of career fields that none of you guys understand, if we're talking about consulting, investment banking, and you don't know what that is, it's okay, right? Yale will help you through that process, especially within the first week. You'll go to panels with different career fields, and they'll really help you narrow down that. And from then on, it's on you to kind of sit down with your career advisor to make a decision to like where you want to put your effort in. Obviously, investment banking, consulting, that's going to be fast and early. And even if you don't get that, it still goes to, and there's always going to be a plan B and plan C, and that's definitely going to be helpful. It's helpful for me in my recruiting process because I didn't get my internship offer until a little bit later. So there's always going to be people to help you. And then just to touch on full-time recruiting too, like especially for your first year, it's like it also just hits you hard and fast as soon as you get back. For me, like to get to my full-time offer, like I started talking about it while my internship was still going on. And you still have to continue to always look for opportunities. Same process. CDO is there to help you and coach you. You can honestly just walk in there, and the range of advice they can give you goes from the strategic level where I don't know what industry I want to go to, I don't know what jobs I want to do, and they'll help you narrow that down to the tactical way. Like they're just helping you tailor your resume to the specific job position or to work specifically for this interview you want to go to, and you're gonna get that range of help just to make sure that you can. So all the resources are there. If you have no idea what to do, that's okay too. And just to add on that, like admissions, we talked about wanting to do what you wanted to do, or having an idea, but nobody from admissions tracks what you actually end up doing versus what you wrote in your application, right? So they're not gonna go like, oh, you said you wanted to go consulting, but you go to investment. It's perfectly okay to change your mind. And it's perfectly okay to do pivot. You're gonna learn a lot of things that you can do here. So just keep that in mind and keep an open mind when you get here.
No, that's great feedback. And I see a few, I'm monitoring the chat, and thanks to all the panelists also for going in. We're trying to answer as many questions as we can also in the chat if we can't get to them in the discussion. But I saw a few questions related to dual degree potential. And I think the comment that Locke just made around, hey, the resources are there to provide guidance and support from the career office or from student or clubs. That also holds true for folks that may be JD MBA or MPH MBA. Your career paths are still plentiful, and the resources to help you figure that out are there as well. So with our last few minutes, let's shift maybe a little bit to some of the more fun stuff and the social situations. So the first question, again, open to anybody who'd like to jump in. What's life like in New Haven? And I guess that's a tough question when there's COVID, right? Because my guess is life for everybody is very, it's this, right? It's Zoom, it's a lot of Netflix and stuff. But what more broadly, what's life like in New Haven?
It is what you make it, right? So if you, being a first year, typically orientation week is supposed to be a lot of fun, a lot of engagement, but it's on you to go out and meet new people. And I guarantee if you are out there trying to be social, other people are trying to be social too. So it's a lot of outdoor activities. We were going on hikes up to the park and through some of the other state parks in the area pretty much twice, 3 times a week. You end up going to a lot of people's houses. You're doing a lot of walks, a lot of picnics. I know Grant is basically trying to organize a spike ball league. So everything is totally doable if you're willing to put in the time and the effort.
Yeah, I hesitate to reference to the before time because it seems like a tender thing to be like, oh, things used to be a little different. Sorry, first years, that hopefully it'll keep getting better. I have to say I've been really grateful with the amount of effort that the whole student community has put into still doing safe get-togethers. So, you know, grad students, they have access to free weekly COVID tests. And so everyone pretty much does that and takes advantage, but we still have been, you have to right now keep gatherings to no more than 10 people. And even then you have to take safety measures. And that's why we were doing, everyone has discovered the outdoors in East Rock Park, I think, and outdoor dinners. And I'm kind of impressed at how well people have still actively been making an effort to organize different activities. Like in my cohort, we have signups where people sign up to host game nights or outdoor barbecues and stuff like that. And it's, I would say, given the COVID situation, still really gratifying to see.
Harrison, you have a unique perspective. You have a young family and you're still a reservist. How do you balance all of it? Or balance is always a tough word. How do you make that work for you and your family and your still military career?
Yeah, that's a great question. Honestly, it's awesome and doesn't even feel like a burden. Like Rebecca went through earlier, the GI Bill at Yale is pretty generous. Your BAH goes a pretty long way, especially if you look to live in one of the surrounding towns. So I'm at home. My wife is also at home, and neither of us have to work right now just based off of the financial aid we're able to get from that and the reserves. I've yet to miss breakfast or dinner with my son since getting out of the Navy in August, which is pretty incredible. And then with the reserves, so a lot of that will depend on your unit and their frequency and what they're asking of you. There are some units that ask for commitments outside of the 1 week in a month, but a lot of them just stick to that. With our classes, we have every Friday off. So even on drill weekends, I still have a day off every weekend. So I've yet to have a drill weekend where I enter the drill weekend without all my academic requirements taken care of. So as long as you prioritize your time, it's been incredibly manageable.
No, that's great. Any other thoughts on New Haven? Any best pizza places from anybody? What, any other?
If you want to, New Haven's a weird place because it's kind of a mix of both. If you live close where I live, downtown, it's kind of more metropolitan, so you get your bars and clubs and a bunch of cool stuff. But if you want to go closer to where SOM is and then Yale is, think the Gilmore Girls. So it's like small and quaint and like hometown, northeastern New England type of place. So you're definitely going to get the mix. New England's overall very small. New Haven's overall very small, but it is pretty close to like travel distance to New York City or Boston, anywhere else that. So like you really have to actually like go crazy. Then you can just hop on the Metro North and within 90 minutes you're in most of the major metropolitan cities in the Northeast.
So we talked a little bit about New Haven. We talked about professional clubs before, but there's many other clubs. How do club activities fit into your social lives?
I'll take it from a fairly broad perspective. I think what a lot of people don't, or a lot of veterans especially don't realize when they come to MBA programs is that, you're no longer kind of a platoon leader, kind of a manager, like you are amongst a bunch of young, educated people. It's like the highest density population of potential interesting friends you'll be around probably since you left undergrad. So there's like a lot of organic opportunities that present themselves for fun. Definitely one channels through clubs, but also just kind of the school is organized around being social. The way cohorts are set up and learning teams is that sort of thing. So as I was applying, I was kind of interested in going to a more urban environment. And I will say there's been plenty of kind of mitigations to that concern since I've arrived, because there's just always something going on.
That's great. So we're coming pretty close to time, I believe. So why don't we go around and maybe just if everybody could give, sort of the 15 to 30 second version of, top piece of advice or thing that maybe we missed as we were going through all the different questions that you want to make sure people retain as a result of this. Let's just go through again. Grant, do you want to kick us off in the same order we went before?
Yeah, I would say I just put another point of emphasis on my original, or one of my first remarks, is just have a counsel helping you out in the process. Have people in the military, outside the military, random strangers, kind of look over your resume, because it'll just start looking like the same piece of paper after a while. And I think that'll be huge value add.
Great, Calvin.
I would definitely say as much as you can, and obviously travel being restricted how it is, engage with as many people from all the different business schools that you're going to look at and apply to, and really focus on cultural fit, because at the end of the day, you still have to be here for 22 months. And if you don't like the people you're with, or you don't like the environment, it's going to make a huge difference, even if it's the best school in the world.
Culture is so important. Right. Harrison, thanks.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that COVID has complicated and made harder. But if you don't focus on those, there's a lot of things that COVID has made easier. I think it's never been easier to get 30 minutes on someone's calendar to talk through something. I think it's never been easier to attend recruiting events and webinars and networking events. So if you focus on those and all the way COVID can enhance your application process, I think you'll find a lot more success.
Great. So, Elena?
For anyone still applying or interviewing at schools, I would just say, if you're doubting yourself about, oh, I don't have any business background, or oh, it's an Ivy League school, I would just say, give yourself credit. You have a lot to offer from your experience in the military, just leading people. It seems like a basic thing, but you'll find a lot of people that you go to school with have never led anyone, and you have a lot to offer, and don't doubt yourself. And just do it, just apply.
Great. Locke?
Yeah, I want to second Lena's point, just because to me, going through the entire process, I mean, I grew up as an immigrant family in California, and like I never thought I would be at this point. And really the key to getting there is just demystifying what it is, because everyone here is a student at SOM, and they're all just like you. Everyone is well accomplished and they're all brilliant. But they're all just people. So I would say, going through the process, don't think that this is some place of just weird cabal people that you don't understand. They're just like you. And we're here to help you, and reach out if you want and need any help. And we're definitely there. The sample of people is really representative of the sample of people at SOM. Like the type of attitude that we have, or willingness to help each other, that's not just exclusive of us, it's exclusive to everybody. So if you really do need the help, reach out. And especially is like, if you reach out to me, I don't really care if you come to SOM or not. I care that you go to the best school that you want to go to, you go to the best career path that you want to go to. And I will help you regardless of whether you're planning to come here or not. And definitely will just, that's an attitude I think we all share on this panel.
I couldn't agree more. John, you get to make our closing comments here.
Sure. This might run counter in sentiment to what Grant said earlier, but I would just make sure you get advice from the right people when you're applying. So by that, I mean people who actually are familiar with business school and how admissions work, and not just some guy you work with. Because you might write like an essay with an interesting story, but that doesn't properly articulate the things I said earlier about why business school, why now, why SOM. Just, your supervisor or someone at work, who reads that, they're just going to say, oh, it's a good story, good essay. They're not going to know. So you reach out to one of us, or reach out to your students at any of the other schools you're interested in, and you'll find a lot of them are going to be willing to help review your resume and work with you on your essays and finding your voice.
That's great. Well, so thanks everybody. Great work, panel. Thanks for exemplifying this community, for all the insights. Jordan, I'll turn it to you to keep us on time.
Thank you, John, and thank you to all the panelists. And this we were on the back end saying this was definitely the best panel that we put together. So thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your words. And to echo or highlight what Locke was saying, that really speaks to the character of the students that we have. Selfless and really looking to support prospective students when it comes to their MBA journey, even if it doesn't land them at Yale SOM. Of Of course, we would love for you to be here, but that really exemplifies the character of the students that we have here. So thank you for mentioning that, and thank the panelists, Grant, Calvin, Harrison, Elena, Locke, John, for everything that you do for us, everything that you do for the space and prospective students as well. Thank you for your service. John, Perez, thank you for moderating this amazing panel. And to everyone who joined us today, thank you for that as well. We look forward to staying engaged with you. Feel free to connect with us on LinkedIn, or you can always reach out to us at the MBA admissions inbox. I'm happy to also connect with you one-on-one if you want to continue the conversation in that regard as well. With that, I will sign off. Be well, be safe, and thank you everyone for joining.
Happy Veterans Day, everybody. Take care.